Hi, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. Last week we created a couple of heart blocks. This week we're going to use those blocks in a custom set that I designed using Electric Quilt. Last week we drafted a couple of different heart blocks using Electric Quilt. Now I want to share with you a design that I came up with for setting these blocks, and I used the custom setting. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So if we go to Work on Quilt, we want to do a quilt, new quilt, and custom set. Now, before we get started, I really had no idea how big my quilt was going to end up, but I thought I will just adjust the layout once I figure it out. So I am going to go into the quilt work table options, or it's actually more quilt work tables, and I'm going to check a few of my settings. So the first thing is the snap settings. So when I do this, I want to make sure when I'm in custom set that I show the grid. I'm going to check on snap block position to grid, snap block size to grid, and I'm going to do the grid and have it snap every 1 inch, and that will make it a little bit easier to place these blocks. Now, I'm also going to go into the layout options, all style, and there's a box that says don't resize contents of layer when resizing quilt. Because I know I'm going to resize my layout, I definitely need to make sure this is checked, or it will do some resizing that I really don't want to do. So I'm going to press OK. So I had 2 blocks that I was working with, and I'm going to actually bring them both in. The first one was the single heart, and the second one was the double heart. And I just added those blocks from my sketchbook. I'm going to close that now, and I'm first going to start with the single heart, put it in the upper corner. And I realized if I was going to make a larger quilt, the 4-inch size is a little bit on the small side. So I'm going to just change the dimensions to 8 by 8. And for the second block, I'm going to change the dimensions to 12 by 12. And you're going to see in a minute what I'm going to do with that. So I've got 2 blocks that I'm going to play with. What I wanted to do with the double heart is really bring it sort of down as half blocks. So if I do a Control C, Control V, I'm going to take the next block and bring it down there. And then if I do another Control C, Control V, I'm going to line up the next block there. Now, one of the things that I can see is I do want this a little bit both wider and taller. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my layout, and I'm going to bring my width up to 55 and my height up to 70. Again, not sure what I'm going to end up, but it gives me enough room to play with here. So I had a number of half blocks here, and then what I'm going to do is in the next row start with a double quilt, and I'm actually going to overlap my corners. And I thought that created a really fun way to sort of play with that negative space and just do a shared corner on that. And so every time I had a corner in that lower left, I'm putting another one of the double blocks in there. And then for the third row, again, I'm going back to my shared corners. And I'm sort of thinking that I'm going to end here. Let me go down just one more row. And so I'm going to just use my ruler and measure how much I've done at this point. So it looks like I've got 44 across, and then going down, it looks like I've got 60. So I'm going to change my layout to a width of 44 by 60. And I'm going to go back into layer 1. And now that single heart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place that, frankly, where I've got room. And again, I'm going to do some shared corners. And in some cases, I'm not sharing a corner, I'm just placing it there. And to do another one, I just keep doing a Control V, or I can do a Control C, Control V. But I have filled that in nicely. Now I do have some empty spaces that I need to fill in. And so I'm just going to put some spacer blocks in there. So if I want to create my spacer blocks, I'm going to click on the Set Block. And in the Block tab, there is a little drop-down box, and I don't think I found this for years. I think I took a class from Barb Black, and she was the one that taught me this trick. But I'm going to add a plain block, and now I can take that plain block and drag it over. Again, I'm going to close my sketchbook, and I'm just going to zoom in because I need to figure out the size that I need that block to be. So I'm just going to use my ruler, go across, and it's 8, and it's 4. So I'm going to take my Adjust tool, and I'm going to change it to 8 across by 4 down. And again, this will snap in place. Fit to work table. I'm going to do a Control C, Control V, because that looks like it will fit in there. And another one fit in there. And then I need to figure out 2 other spaces here. So I'll bring another block in for that. Pick up my ruler. 8. So that's 8 by 4 the other way. So I'm going to do the adjust, and I'm going to say 4 by 8. Move that in place. Control C, Control V, refresh, and let me just measure this. So this one looks like 12 inches. And so I will change this to 12 inches tall. And I'm now deciding, would it be better for this to be down? Actually, I think I want that one down. So I'm going to actually delete this, do another Control C, Control V, move that in place, and do the same with that. And I can go ahead and use the eyedropper tool, and I will pick up the gray, and I will color my spacers gray. Now, on some of these singles, I think I want to use the red and dark red, so I have contrast between them. So to figure out what red I had, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool. I'm going to pick up this red, and notice that it shows up. I'm going to go to my spray can, and I'm going to take the blocks that I want to recolor, and then I can just spray can the item that I want to color. So I pretty much have a little bit of an every other block going on. And I'm going to pick up my eyedropper and now pick up what the dark red is. And I can go ahead and color those blocks as well. So I think that looks pretty good, and now I need to add borders. So I'm going to make the first one 2 inches. So I'll go to border, make it 2, click on the slider bar, it makes all of them 2, and I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to make that 4, and click on again the slider bar and make that 4. So that makes my overall quilt, which I can't see down there, so let me move that up a bit, 56 by 72, which would actually be a very nice lap or throw quilt. So I do need to color this. Not sure if I'm going to use a different fabric, so I'll start with a really light gray here, and then for the second one maybe use the dark red. So that gives me at least a base to get started. Now the other thing that I did was did some research and got some suggestions from a couple people, one person on Instagram, on my website, for some fabric collections. And so I have gone and pulled down those fabric collections, and I have them in my downloads, and I'm now going to bring a couple of them in here to play with this quilt. So I'm going to go to libraries, fabric library, and I'm going to import from my image files, and I'm going to go ahead and go to downloads, and I think the first one that I wanted to try was First Crush, and so and that's a Moda collection, so I'll do the first one, do a Control A, which will select them all, and do an open. And then I'm going to take that first one, do another Control A, and I'm going to go ahead and add those to the sketchbook. Ooh, and before I do that, actually I'm going to do the sketchbook, do a Control A, and I'm actually going to delete them. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do that import one more time. And Control A and add to sketchbook, close this, and now I'm going to do a swap all colors. I have finished all my swaps here, and so I can now go ahead and add this to the sketchbook. And we now have a new Valentine's Day quilt. Thanks so much for watching. For additional videos and techniques, or to see the piecing instructions, or even check out another option for a table runner using these blocks, check out my related blog post at www.onpointquilter.com.